Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us again. I'm Ashley, owner of Cyber Career Advancement, and we are joined here today by Vincent, who has landed his job offer. So, Vincent, thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so Vincent is coming and he is going to be sharing all about his journey, what he went through, his mindset, and the various things he had to do in order to land the job that he has right now. And so, Vincent, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what was happening before you even reached out to me?
A little bit about me. Prior to reaching out to you, I was actually in a cybersecurity boot camp, but I was actually in it for a while. I had to kind of take a step back because I had some health related issues in 2023. But when I got back better and I was able to, fully participate, I still felt like there was some gaps that were missing. And then when the boot camp came to an end, I kind of felt lost. But right before it ending, I reached out to you because I had seen you on LinkedIn and I had worked with you previously in the past before. So that's when I was like, okay, let me see. I felt like it wouldn't hurt, and honestly, it became one of the best decisions that I made.
Ooh, that's so exciting. So you reached out to me. You were already in a boot camp. You decided to reach out and get some support. What were you looking for? Like what were some of those gaps that you mentioned you felt you were missing?
um, I felt like some of the gaps that I was missing were mainly on the focus of just being personable and also also knowing how to be yourself, because I felt like when you're transitioning into a new industry, which is what I was looking to do, like as far as transferring into cybersecurity, because my background is logistics and transportation. Transferring into cybersecurity, you get a well, any industry, you pretty much get a a huge form of like imposter syndrome, which in a lot of roles you'll probably get anyway. But just like going cold turkey into a whole nother industry that's not really related to your industry, it really makes it a bit harder. So for me, it really helped to talk with you and to get coaching from you, because you taught me how to, like, basically use my transferable skills and also not be ashamed of what it is that I did in order for me to get ahead. So I would say that was the biggest thing, along with like the resume writing and stuff like that as well.
Okay, yeah, I don't know why people be wanting to hide all of that good experience that they have. Like, you better come and show that. Highlight that. That's what's going to help you in landing that next role. And so, okay, so you ended up joining Cybe Tribe. And so, what was that experience like for you, especially as somebody who was at the time working a full-time job?
So, like you said, at the time when I first joined Cyber Tribe, I was working a full-time job. um you had sessions. You had a LinkedIn session, a resume artist session, as well as interview sessions. With the current schedule that I was working at my job at the time, I wasn't able to make those sessions, so I would pretty much just catch like the replays. And even still, it was like a bit hard for me. But then in January, the beginning of January, actually, I got laid off from my job. They pretty much laid everybody off. So that gave me the opportunity to actually be able to attend those Zoom calls, whether it be the LinkedIn ones, the resume ones, or the interview ones. And I would say they helped a whole lot, because it really showed me like where I was lacking. And to be honest with you, when you are looking, even if you're not looking for a transition into like a new career, if you're looking for a new job, it's a full-time job. And with it being a full-time job, you really have to, like, be intentional about applying. You can't just be hitting, like, apply everywhere, just applying everywhere. And then when you're applying, you're basically not giving yourself the best chance or whatever. You know, you're not reading the job description. You probably read the job title, but you don't read the job description at all. Which, which in some cases, like I was guilty of doing that in the past or whatever. But once I started looking at the job descriptions, I was able to be like, oh, I can do this. Like this is in my warehouse or whatever. Like even though the job title might not seem like that's what you're actually doing in the job description. But yeah, like so just those little small minor tweaks really helped as well.
Yeah, and I remember I used to say, Vincent's in the house. Like, come on in, Vincent, when you would be able to attend the session. So that's awesome. And then, having the replays and knowing that you have access to those. I can't tell you how many people who are working full time are like, I watched the replays and I landed my role. Like, I watched the replays and I landed my role. So don't sleep on those replays.
Mhm.
So talk to me a little bit. So you join Cybe Tribe, you start attending some of the sessions, you go through a period where you were laid off from your current job, and what kind of happens after that?
So when I was laid off from my current from my job at the time, I was laid off for about like a month and a half. Within that time, a few things changed. So I ended up moving to a different city, and then also like my whole finance situation changed. So originally I was actually gonna leave Cybe Tribe, and then I had a conversation with you and we talked on the phone, and you basically you basically told me it would be okay, and then you also gave me some resources in order to like keep cash flowing and stuff like that until I actually did land a role. So what that whole process was like, I literally would get up in the morning and do at least 5 resumes a day. And another thing that you do in the Cybe Tribe is that you have an application tracking system. So I took that application tracking system and I basically made it my own. So that way, because when you start getting hit up by jobs, and this happened to me in the past before, when you get hit up by jobs that you apply for, you don't even remember that you applied to certain jobs. So now that I had like a tracking system, when they call me back, about a job or whatever, I can just simply go to whatever the job was, what the job role was, and in some cases, they'll even tell you what they were paying. So like, you're not putting your foot in your mouth when they do ask about like compensation and stuff like that. So like that was definitely something that really it made a big difference. Like, but I will say that, like I said, it's a full-time job. You really have to be on it because when it was all said and done, I know I did at least 100 applications.
Woo. And that's only like 10 days worth. So like I have anybody who is watching this, if you are in Cybe Tribe, you heard that and you said 100. That's it.
Yeah, it probably I'm probably selling myself very short, but it was definitely a lot. I really am probably selling myself short because when I factor in the fact of the applications that I was putting in before I started tracking those, plus the ones that I did start tracking, like when you add all of those up, yeah, it probably is way more.
That tracker can help though, man, especially when they start calling you from months later or years later. We had one person submitted a application, got a call back the following year to interview.
Wow.
That's
Yeah, because the job that I currently have, I think I had applied almost about a month before they actually contacted me. So when they contacted me, it was just like, okay, but being that I had like the tracking system in place, I was able to easily go back and look at it and see. I'm like, okay, so then like we talked or whatever. I spoke with the recruiter. I passed the screening with the recruiter. Then next, they set up the Zoom interview with the regional manager, the general manager, and also the operation supervisor. All three of them were on a call at the same time.
how did you feel being in that?
Um, by that time, I had pretty much did my fair share of interviews, so I wasn't like really nervous and nothing like that. And like, when you know what it just generally starts coming out. So being that I'm like, not new to the field of like logistics and supply chain and stuff like that, I just really started speaking on what I knew or whatever. And then another thing that came in the interview, and I actually appreciated the interview for saying it. So like he basically said something about think I don't know if he mentioned like what was my weaknesses or something like that, but basically whatever it was that he said, it made me crack a smile, and he was like, "That's what I was looking for," because people want to interview people that they like, and they want to hire people that they like, and they also they want to see personality. So, and after the interview, we talked on the phone, and he's like, when you started smiling, he said that pretty much made a world of difference in like the whole process.
Mm-hmm. So people want to work with who they like. It's
Yeah.
one thing to just be the person who knows all the information. It's another thing to be the person who knows the information and people like you.
Hmm.
If people
Exactly.
like you.
Exactly, because it comes off as rehearsed sometimes, like when you're constantly interviewing, and then most of the time, a lot of these questions are pretty much the same, so you can pretty much answer them like with your eyes closed. But then sometimes they'll throw like a curveball in. Then when they throw the curveball in, that's when you got to pivot, and then that's when you start probably like smiling and stuff like that. So like in like one, and from that point on, when he said that, that just fully loosened me up, and like and then it just became like a conversation. It wasn't even an interview anymore.
You were in that interview like, hey, I'm Vincent. What's going on? Oh,
Yeah,
my biggest weakness is, and they like, hold up, I'm just playing.
yeah. And then I felt like, and it was funny because like I told you, I've interviewed so many times. After that interview was done, I was like, something feels different about this interview. So with that, and I was just like I just really kept thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I get a call the next day from the supervisor, and they wanted me to come on site and see the actual operation to see if it would be like a good fit for me. And like it was funny because he prefaced it by saying like, oh, like we haven't made the decision yet or whatever the case may be. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you haven't made the decision yet, but y'all want me to come look at the operation and stuff like that. Okay, I'll play along. But like so like that happened, and then that was on a Friday, and then by Monday, I actually reached back out to like the general manager, I mean the regional manager, because the regional manager is actually located in Virginia, and I'm in North Carolina. So when I spoke to him or whatever, I was like, I wanted to like give you feedback and let you know how basically like what my experience was. He was like, he said, from what I heard, it sounded like it was a good experience or whatever. And then we just talked for like about 15 more minutes, and then he gave me his cell phone number and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, I'm in.
Amen. God is so good. That is so good to hear. And so your job offer is actually really interesting because you were able to take the knowledge that you already had being in that field, incorporate some of the stuff that you learned in GRC, right? And some of the stuff you learned in Tribe and kind of bring it all together to land this interesting job that bridges all of these areas. So, can you share a little bit about what your new role is and what you're going to be doing?
So what my new role is, well, the actual title is Freight Forwarding Operations Supervisor. What that basically means is I'm responsible for overseeing the movement the movement of freight between different hubs that goes out to airports in different states, and make sure everything is shipped accordingly, and make sure like the paperwork is processed the right way. And that's where it ties in with the whole like GRC thing, because when the paperwork has to be processed according to like governmental regulations like the FFA and TSA and things like that, which is basically how I was able to leverage the fact of what I did know about GRC, and also the importance of like regulations and frameworks and stuff like that. And
Mm,
all and so like I'm responsible for like the paperwork side, and then I'm also responsible for overseeing the drivers and the dock workers, and making sure they're loading stuff properly, and making sure like mitigating damages when it comes to like the freight and stuff like that, to basically reduce any type of damage to the freight, so that way not no extra cost is like is incurred to the company and stuff like that. So it aligns pretty good with GRC to the point of like if my next role does pivot into cybersecurity, I can definitely pivot into it like pretty much with ease.
Exactly, exactly. And knowing you, you're going to be moving up in this organization and you're going to be overseeing all of it. I'm claiming it now for you. I am claiming it now. That's so exciting. Wow. Vincent, you know what? When you and I spoke before this session and you told me about this role and how it all played out, man, I was smiling for a few hours after that. I was smiling so much my face hurt because I was just so happy for you and knowing your history, your journey, and that you didn't let the layoff make you doubt yourself. You actually went complete 360 and used it to push yourself forward even faster and even harder. And that's what I want people to take from this is sometimes what feels like rejection or a closed door is actually an opportunity to push you forward, but it's going to require you putting that effort in to move forward. So most people they take that and then they go backwards. They're like, "Oh, I lost my job. I'm nothing." Like they start going real negative. And it's like just remember that a job loss doesn't define you, but it can define your next steps. And you did that. You
Yeah,
did.
absolutely, absolutely. Like, I feel like the biggest thing for me was just knowing how to sacrifice, especially for like the greater good and knowing like what's to come, the situation that you're in is not the situation that you'll remain in.
Yeah.
Not to mention like, with me being laid off, I also had to really remember like, my history and the things that I've been through. In 2023, I had a real big like health scare. And with me being able to overcome that, I just knew in my heart of hearts that I would overcome this as well. So that's what really like motivated me to keep going and to not, get down on myself. Of course, like, everybody's human. You'll have your days when you do get down and it's just important for you not to stay there. So like, when those days happen, whatever, I'll try to like, go outside, get some fresh air and stuff like that. And, just try to change your surroundings sometimes because sometimes that's a lot of what helps. And to me, I think that was what helped me as well because I was staying in the Raleigh area and then I ended up moving to the Charlotte area. And that change I felt like made all the difference for me. And like, just going back to talking about sacrifice or whatever, I went and stayed at my grandmother's place during that whole time or whatever. Wasn't the most comfortable situation or whatever, but I knew I had to go. And I did what I had to do. And and it came through because like I never left my eyes off of what it was that I was trying to obtain.
There it is. And you kept putting in that effort, you kept putting in that work, you kept tracking your jobs, you were applying to the jobs, you were doing interview prep all the time, watching the replays, like you were doing your thing.
Yeah, and like, after a while, and you're like, as cliche as it sounds, it does become repetition when you do start interviewing stuff like that. Like, I can't tell you how many interviews I've had, but it got to the point to where it became second nature. Like a lot of times when I would first start interviewing, I would need like at least like, a good amount of prep time or whatever. Then like when they be like, "Oh, can you interview tomorrow or something like that?" I'm like, yeah, I can do that or whatever. And then like, I know how to prep for it. I know how to look over the job description to like, align myself with what the interviewer might say and just things of that nature, whatever. And all of these are things that's really important in GRC as well, because, you're looking at a lot of paperwork or whatever and just like documentation, and you're gonna have to be able to read and be able to break things down.
Yep. And see, that's the key. And so, like, you stayed prepared. So you didn't have to, like, go through the process of getting prepared. Like, you literally stayed prepared by, doing the trainings, attending the sessions, watching the replays, and learning the tricks of the trade so that you can look at those descriptions really quick and be like, the next day, let me go ahead and interview. Like, you did that. Like, I don't want anybody to minimize what you just said because you put in that work to make that happen for you. Like, I need you to be doing some of these right now because you did that. You did that. You brought this opportunity to you and you prepared for that moment, for that interview. and you went through multiple interviews, but you prepared continuously. And I tell everybody the process is not easy, but it is simple. It's a simple process. It's a process of consistency. And you did that.
Yeah,
Maybe not while you were working though, but after after the layoff, you got super consistent and it paid off for you.
yeah, I think, I feel like that's kind of one of my habits sometimes, is sometimes I work well under pressure, but at the same time I may put a bit of unnecessary pressure on myself. So like, when I have the chance to actually do something and take care of it right then and there. Sometimes I may procrastinate to the point where it becomes like a last minute thing, and now I'm putting unneeded pressure on myself. But I normally perform well under pressure. So once the layoff thing happened, I already knew that it was actually going to happen, like prior to it actually happening, and I will say that I didn't really prepare myself fully for it, even though you think that you do. Like, I wasn't like I said, I wasn't basically making sure that my resume was up to par. I wasn't doing like, interview sessions and stuff like that. Even though like I said, like the replays were inside Tribe, but I wasn't going back to them as frequently as I should. So, but once, it all ended or whatever, and I felt like my back was against the wall, I just came out swinging.
He said, I'm watching that video. I'm coming to that session.
Yeah, I just came out swinging or whatever, and like everything and it was just a great experience because it just really and it taught me a lot about myself as well too.
Yeah, what's something that you learned about yourself?
Um, one thing that I feel that I learned about myself is that I'm able to I'm able to pivot, and I'm able to be able to look at a situation and tell, hey, this may not be serving me the way that I want it to right now, but I can still pivot and make it something great. Example of that, my whole focus was to get into cybersecurity GRC, and I had a conversation with you a few weeks back, and I was just like, I think that I may have to pivot and like, try to find something in my field to try to get something like a bit more quicker, because even though I'm picking up I'm picking up the cybersecurity stuff or whatever, I still feel like I kind of need something a bit more sooner. And when I did that, I was kind of scared because I was like, man, she don't believe in me and stuff like that. I don't know if I want to tell her or whatever. So then, and I actually told you. So then, once I talked to you and I got your blessing, I was like, okay, cool. So let me just buckle down. And then, so when I was looking at jobs or whatever, I was just looking in like the field that I'm familiar with, which is supply chain, logistics, transportation, all of that whole type of thing, because all of them is basically in the whole like field of supply chain. And I was able to find the correlation between that and GRC, which was pretty much how I landed the job. And just knowing how, and GRC also is just about knowing how to talk to people as well too, because you
Okay.
could because you're going to do a lot of talking to people. So once I was able to articulate myself well, and they understood me, that's what I think really really sealed the deal for me. Because also what the interviewer told me was that they had actually picked somebody for the position. They hired somebody internally. Then they had my interview, and he was like, after they had my interview, they he was like, man, I was up to like 4 in the morning, and he was like, I talked to the other people that was on the call, and I was like, I think we might have to do some rethinking about this position, because like the direction that they went wasn't the direction that they originally was going to go in.
Okay. Okay. So you came in and changed the whole trajectory. You came
Hmm.
in and changed the whole game. That's what's up. Yeah, I wasn't letting you go. I didn't care what your situation was. I didn't care if you could afford it, couldn't afford it. I was going to sponsor you. I did not care.
Hmm.
You weren't leaving because I just knew in my heart that you were supposed to be here. And so then when I see you get your offer, I'm like, there we go. There we go. That just makes me so happy, man. I'm so proud of you. I hope you're proud of yourself too.
I am. I really am proud of myself. And like I said, like I just felt like I just came out swinging, and like even and like some days it got to the point where I started getting like a lot of like, even if I wasn't getting interviews, I was getting like a lot of emails from like from companies like reaching back out to me from like applications that I put in. So I'm like, okay, my resume isn't the problem. So I'm actually getting traction. Because when you don't get traction, that's when you start to be like, okay, what is there something wrong with my resume? Originally, it was something wrong with my resume. It was a lot wrong with my resume.
No, I
So
remember.
so so I changed it or whatever, and I went line by line, and I still remember the day that you grilled me about it, and I went line by line, and from that time where you grilled me to where I actually finished making a change or whatever. It took me about 2 weeks, and that also speaks to the fact of like this is a full-time thing. You have to take your time and make sure everything is aligned. Because once you make sure those things are aligned, then it does start becoming like the traction starts coming like fast, and it starts coming fast.
Yeah, yeah. And what Vincent is talking about is inside of Cyber Tribe, I have a training that I have everybody go through. Oh, I do remember now, Vincent. I have a training that I have everybody go through that gets you to the point where you're developing a resume that's to my standard. And so then you have the opportunity on Tuesdays to come in and have your resume reviewed as a group to determine if you're on the right track and if you have the green light. And so I remember asking you, did you go through this? And you're like, yeah, I did. And I was like, yeah, no, we need some. And then you did it. And then you did it.
Yeah, I remember going to yeah, I went to NC State College Library, and I sat down for like probably about like 3 or 4 hours just like tweaking that resume.
Yep. And then you ended up getting the green light. I'm like, you're ready to go.
Hmm.
Applying. It's time. Oh man, I'm so proud of you, man. So I guess my last question for you today is going to be this, right? Knowing that you went through this process and um, it hasn't even been a long time actually, but knowing that you went through this process overall, if somebody is thinking about joining the Sci Tribe organization but is on the fence, right? What would you say to them?
If they're thinking about joining their own defense, so I can just speak from my experience. I feel like I was originally on the fence. I took a gamble, and that gamble really paid off. And to me, it paid off in ways that I didn't think would pay off. Like as far as just knowing how to speak, and then also being confident, and that's what a lot of boot camps and stuff like that don't teach you. They don't teach you confidence, and especially the abilities that you already have and also the skills that you already have. And I feel like being in Cyber Tribe really highlighted what I knew and what I was actually good at, and also what skills were transferable, and also how to do it, and how to do it in an ethical way as well. And I feel like those things are really important, so you're not so when you are if you're not looked at as a robot or whatever, you're looked at as human. Because like you said, people only want to hire people only want to hire people that they like. And and i and another thing is, I just felt like Cybertry really helped me learn to think outside of the box. If I didn't think outside of the box, I wouldn't have got this role. Like, I would have just been solely focused on what I thought I wanted my career to be at the time. And I probably would have still got there, but it probably would have took a lot longer. So with me being able to like think outside of the box and just actually understanding what GRC is as a whole, outside of GRC, outside of cybersecurity GRC, things like that is really important, because it lets you know that there's so much growth and opportunity everywhere.
That's right. There sure is. So, ooh, that was powerful. I didn't know you were on the fence, but that's good to know.
Yeah, I was. When I hit you up on LinkedIn, it was like because I was seeing like the wins and stuff that you would post or whatever. So then I reached out to you in a message, and then when you reached back out to me, and then we set up the consultation call, I was like, oh, she on it, she on it. So we got to it right away or whatever. And then like I said, I was on the fence. And then like, when you explained it to me and you broke it down to me, like as much as I was on the fence, I still made a decision that day.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of you for doing that too, because it's not always easy to make a choice when it's something that's completely new like this, right? Like
Hmm.
Five Tribe at this current time hasn't even been up for a year, but we've had so many wins and interviews and job offers. Like it's been crazy. And if you're wondering, like, didn't you say your organization is Cyber Career Advancement? So Cyber Career Advancement is the business, and Cyber Tribe is a service, a community that's underneath of Cyber Career Advancement. Just for anybody who's listening and is like, what are you guys talking about? Cyber Career Advancement or Cyber Tribe? So that's what that's all about. So, Vincent, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I do want to thank you so much for coming, talking with us, sharing your story, being so open and vulnerable, and just giving that motivation to people who may be experiencing, similar circumstances to you. I know for a fact that your testimony is going to transform somebody's life.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Like, anytime you call, like, and you ask me for something like this, I don't mind doing it at all. And like I said, in 2023, like I had a very big health scare, and ever since then I felt like I wanted to be able to tell my story or whatever, because there's a lot of people that suffer in silence, and with them suffering in silence, it's good to like just let people know that you're not alone or whatever, especially being that, when I was going through what I was going through, I didn't have a lot of people that even knew what I was going through. So that just made me think to myself that, there are other people that's like, going through whatever problems it is that they have or whatever. You're not alone. You really gotta persevere and just like keep believing in yourself. If you're a person of faith or whatever, just lean on your faith, but also do the work as well.
And know that you got a whole tribe behind you now. So
Hmm.
you're alone. You are never alone because we got your back. We got
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I'm glad I'm here and I ain't going nowhere.
Y'all heard that? Listen, we got a lot of members inside Tribe who have landed jobs and are still staying with us today. Just for the other services that are there too, like the weekly career coaching to make sure not only do you get the job, but you know how to keep it and how to advance and accelerate. So when I hear that, I'm like, let's go. Side Tribe is always pouring right back into each other. So with that being said, Vincent, thank you so much for joining. And guys, until next time, I wonder who's going to be next. You'll find out soon in the next video.